So culturally relevant teaching also requires culturally responsive leadership, because there has to be a collective efficacy and a collective focus as we move about shifting and creating paradigm shifts in our schools and in our communities. So we have to get to the heart level. We have to understand who the children are. We have to understand who we are. We have to look within to see if we have implicit biases, if we have stereotypes, if we are creating stereotype threats, environments in our classrooms, in our schools. So you look at it from the teacher level, is it happening in the classroom? But when it comes to culturally responsive leadership, you have to look at it from the leadership level as the culture and the climate of the school. So culturally responsive leadership is critical. And we have to get to that point by dealing with the self-efficacy, the teacher efficacy, and all of these things that we sometimes move about with that are subtle. We have to bring awareness to this, and we have to shift our perceptions and our perspectives, because everyone grew up differently, everyone was exposed to different things, everyone has different experiences, and that's what shapes our perceptions. And our perceptions then create our perspectives. So this is what needs to happen, from my opinion and my expertise, in our high-need urban settings. We have to get in there, we have to understand the community, we have to understand the dynamics, and we have to look at every level and every layer of this thing as we forge forth to lead impactful change, knowing that education, it is a heart matter.
And when we're talking about family engagement, the research, as you indicated earlier, is really clear that when a parent is involved in a child's education, it really doesn't matter what grade level the parent was in when they graduated or did not graduate even from school, what ethnicity, what race, what cultural background, it doesn't matter. What matters is that the parent has a very positive feeling and interaction with the child about learning and about school. There's a whole lot more research out there that talks about a child whose parent is involved in their education does better in school, has higher test scores, more likely to go on to post-secondary, less likely to be anything in drugs or any kind of alcohol abuse, less likely to miss school, less likely to, and more likely to go on and get a graduate degree and go on to post-secondary. So there's all kinds of research. Now the practical application for all kinds of ethnicities and groups and cultural diversity is sometimes amazing. The more engaged the parents are, the better the children do, and it's just clearly there, not only in the research, but in the practical application. Our biggest problem sometimes is convincing school people, especially administrators, how important this part is. Mostly what I hear is we want to raise test scores, and I'm saying, that's great. Engage the parents, you'll see that happening. Cannot yet make a connection in some ways. We're still working on that. Now, though, it's not so much of a convincing, but a how. How do I do it? How do I make this happen? I'm one of those people that says, I don't really care which way you go, I just want you to do it because I know it works. There's just no question it works.
So this is an important area in computer science education. There is a historic underrepresentation of women, of people from different cultural backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses, as well as people with disabilities. So a focus on culturally responsive pedagogy is of critical importance in this area. Thankfully, this is an area that the computer science education research community and the practitioner community are really focusing on. In fact, there's been a recently developed K-12 computer science framework of concepts and practices that all students in K-12 ought to know. And the very first practice that is stated in the framework is the fact that we need to foster an inclusive computing community. And the reason that we need to do that is not only because of this perpetual underrepresentation issue, but also because if we're thinking about technology development, technologies are better when you have a diverse perspective of people who are developing those technologies. If you only have one perspective, then the technologies that are being developed aren't really very inclusive, aren't really for everyone. And so there's a growing understanding that this is an area that's not just important for kind of the equity issue, but it's also better from a technology development issue.